But yeah, once this starts, all right, great. Meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. I hope nobody minds if we're streaming live. We're trying it out, and we didn't advertise it as such just because it's still in a test. We're still kind of testing it out, but it looks like it's going to work. So I guess without much further ado, we'll get started. I just want to say what's up. My name is Zach O'Farrell. I'm the director of education at Jazz Alliance. I yeah. Once this I'm hearing myself on the starts. Okay, sorry. I was hearing myself on the YouTube. All right. Sorry. Again, I'm Zach O'Farrell. I'm the director of education programs at the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance. I just want to thank you guys for all joining us on our regular Wednesday masterclass. Today, we're obviously featuring a dear friend of mine, incredible musician, and even more inspiring person, Rachel Therrien, who I've had the great pleasure to make music with in a variety of contexts and in a few different countries too. And she's one of the most interesting people I know who goes out of her way to make music with people that she doesn't know from cultures she's unfamiliar with to try and further all of our human artistic connection. And she's really someone who practices what she preaches and really puts herself out there in a lot of incredible situations that she's unfamiliar with, but wants to learn and always connect with people, and is, I think, a very interesting and inspiring person and a phenomenal musician. So, without much further ado, Rachel Therrien.
Hi. Hi everyone. I prepared some videos to show you a little bit my background. I started in high school like a lot of people with I had no musician in my family, so I picked up the trumpet cuz it was the only instrument left in the orchestra when I moved from a city to the other one. So I didn't even choose my instrument. It felt like it was meant to be. And then I did some drum corps, and I realized that I could actually do this as a living in Montreal. um, have you ever been to Montreal? Any of you? No. Okay. So Montreal, it's a little bit like New York in the way that it's very multicultural, but it's so small compared to New York that actually all the different communities actually mix up a lot. I would say a lot more than in New York because there's a lot less people from each community to actually create like huge whatever ghettoized or yeah, whatever. So everybody mixes up. Everybody that comes from a different country unite, and there's like a lot of world music clubs that presents music from all over the world. And I got lucky when I was starting working as a trumpet player. I was around 17 years old. That's a long time ago. And I was playing with bunch of different uh, origins of music. The first person that actually gave me his you have to first excuse me because I've been speaking Spanish and French for like more than 2 months now, and my English is a bit far. So I'm searching my words a little bit. The first person that actually trusted my capacity as a professional musician, his name was Nazir Bouchareb. I say was because he passed away maybe 5 years ago. But like I didn't I was a little bit unlucky because I had trumpet teachers that didn't really believe in me. And then I met all those people from those different communities that really um, integrated me in their universe and in their groups and gave me work and trusted me musically. So I kind of went more that way right at first. I'm gonna show you a video. I actually did some research and I haven't seen that video. I haven't watched it completely. I just found out it was on YouTube. That's me when I was 17 years old playing with Nazir Bouchareb. he played the gambri, which is a traditional instrument from Morocco, and he did an adaptation of Gnawa music with brass and stuff. So I'm gonna share that video just to give you an example. Does that work? Yay. Logiciel provisoire. That's a video from like 2005, 2004. So they had all those traditional outfits that were dressed by women. I didn't get the pink one and he was kind of, I call him my older brother. In Montreal, and I've been learning and playing with him since I was 10 years old. Okay, so that's just to give an idea of what I was playing, and then I wasn't studying jazz yet. I was already improvising a lot with this group. I learned improvising with. I was playing with other groups from Ivory Coast, from Burkina Faso, from Mali, because there's a huge immigration from French African country in Montreal because it's French speaking. So and yes, I always was open to learn, and they were open to give and to share. So I learned a lot from all those communities. After maybe 1 or 2 years, I went to study in jazz at University of Montreal, and I was asked to play with a drummer. His name is Namori Cissé. He's from Ivory Coast, and he's from the old school. Like he had, I think still today, maybe outside of Afro-Latin Jazz Orchestra, his music is the most complicated music I've never played. And the fun part of it is that he had no chart. Everything was taught by voice. So I really, really, really developed my hearing and my learning by ear and learning polyrhythm by ear too, and like kind of learn how to feel it more like in a dense way than to learn it mathematically, because mathematically works, but if you don't actually feel it, you'll never be able to play the real thing, because it's very hard to be tight with stuff. So the more you feel it inside, the more you're actually going to be tight with those types of rhythms. And that's what I learned with him. And I actually found a video around that time. I think this was maybe 2008 at a festival in Montreal. His music is a little bit more like Afro jazz, like African jazz. So I'll share it with him. No, you're seeing my, okay. Again with my big brother Andre. So all those breaks, it was not a number of bars. We just had to listen to his fill, and he knew that the end of the fill was the punch. So I actually had to learn how he played to know when the fill was coming in, which was amazing cool. And he rehearsed. Can you hear me well? He rehearsed every week from Friday from 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. And we had a lunch break. That we all together. It was like, it has to be like that. If not, you can't keep it like that. I put it him, his band, and part of like my university schedule. Every Friday was memory. It was great. Like that punch, the tuck. Sometimes he would wait 4 bars before playing it. Sometimes he would wait 8 bars before playing it. And this time he waited 1 bar. So you really had to like be attentive to what he played. And it's funny because learning music by memory. I haven't played with him since 12 years, and I'm sure that if I got to play with him today, I would remember every tune. This tune I can play it now. It kind of internalize the music. Okay. Stop share. It's the first time I'm doing the share screen on Zoom. Please excuse me with that. And then I went, I was at university and I played with the big band at university. I was a little bit unhappy with my trumpet teachers and stuff that were great trumpet players, but not necessarily teachers. I don't know if you know what I mean, but like, I really think deeply that teaching is it's a curriculum in itself. It's a career in itself. There's some musicians that are also great teachers, but there's musicians that are great musicians and not necessarily teachers. And there's, because it's a different thing to play and to teach. It's not the same. I love to share, but I don't think I'm a good one-on-one teacher. I love to do workshops and stuff. I love to share what I know, but not necessarily on a weekly basis thing. And I respect that, and I respect every teachers that are great. And I was playing with that big band, and we had the opportunity to play with Geraldo Piloto. Do you know this name? Drummer, yeah. He was a drummer with Irakere in the old Irakere with Chucho Valdez, and he has his own group called Climax. And I got lucky that the big band director brought him and the rhythm section and one of the trumpet players to play his Climax music, but not the dance music, more the let's say big band arrangement a little bit. He tours a lot with that music, and it's funny because in Cuba, when you go see Climax, it's like pure salsa, and when you see Climax outside of Cuba, it's like all that weird push stuff. I'll put in just a little bit of a piece that we actually played with the big band, and that made me fall in love in Cuba, and that made me fall in love with Cuba. And that's when I met the trumpet player that came, Harvest Cooney, his name. He told me, I was telling him about like the trumpet teachers and my issue with school and how I was not doing good and how I was a little bit unhappy with university. And he was like, you should go study in Cuba because teachers are great. Teachers are great because teachers in Cuba actually, if a musician decides to be a teacher in Cuba, they actually decide to gain less money because it pays more for a musician to actually just do music and tour than actually teach in a school, because the school is paid by the government. So it's like it was equivalent to $30 a month to be a teacher. So people that actually are teachers in university in Cuba are very, 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 very passionate about teaching. So after that, I went to Cuba, but I'll play a little bit of Climax. I'll play a part of the name of the piece is Torre de Cali. Try to listen to the brass part. It's pretty amazing. I played that. That was 2007 that I played with them. I learned so much by playing that. I have to share the audio. Can you hear? That's very typical. The way of playing trumpet is very Cuban approach to the trumpet section, and I learned a lot just playing that music. I learned more, even more, when I moved to Cuba to study. But this is still one of my favorite albums ever. He's the one arranging everything, and it's all handwritten. The first time I saw the chart, it was unreadable. I had to practice just to read the note. I had to memorize it because I couldn't read it. Nice. So this was Climax. It's an album that came out in 2006. It's called Giraldo Piloto, Climax and Friends. I recommend it's on Spotify and everything if you just want to take a listen. And I'm sure
Actually,
you can.
Rachel, one of the
Yeah.
things one of the things we've been doing, and we can do this. You can do this after is people giving the classes have actually been making a playlist afterwards with a lot of the music they've been talking about. So I can get everyone's email address who's on the class right now, and you and I can coordinate however you want to do that, and I can pass that to everyone.
Perfect.
Yeah. Also,
Awesome.
if you could maybe turn the volume down a little bit on your YouTube playback,
Oh,
just so we can hear you talking better when you're talking.
okay. Thank you. Awesome. So yeah, then I listened to that advice from that trumpet player, and I went to study in Cuba the year after, which was 2008. um I arranged with Geraldo. He helped me out to do the audition to get into the school. It was Instituto Superior de Arte. It's in Havana, Cuba. um I had to do kind of an audition to go in music. I have a friend that came with me that just went to do like Spanish lessons, and she could take piano lessons and stuff. But I wanted to do the music curriculum, so I had to do the audition. So I went for the first time in Cuba in May 2008. Yeah, May 2008, and in September I moved there for for a year. And I studied classical trumpet at Instituto Superior de Arte. Also, I also studied percussion a lot with Emilio Del Monte, great percussionist and teacher at the school. So I was taking bongo classes and timbales classes, because timbales, if you want to learn Cuban music, a lot of different rhythms. If you learn bongos or congas, it's a similar march to different rhythms. But if you actually learn timbales, you're actually going to learn the difference between every single rhythm. So that was great. I was practicing. That was the best time of my life, because I was practicing outside all the time and practicing trumpet like 5 hours a day, and percussion another 5 hours a day, and piano like 2 hours a day. And it was just music and music and music. And that's the great thing about Cuba, is that people have the time to focus on what they want. Now it's changing a little bit, gratefully for them, because they have more and more access to internet and stuff. But in 2008, there was no internet in Cuba. You had to pay $5, $5 US to for like 20-minute internet, which is super expensive. So actually, people are very focused on what they want to do. And I learned so much over there, because people were exchanging a lot. People are helping each other. I've never learned that much as when I was there. And the most I've learned from was my buddies, trumpet player, my generation of student, my buddies studying with me. Everybody were giving each other comments and advice, and that was great. And I got to play with a band in Cuba. His name is Rember Duarte. Does it sound familiar? He's a great composer, piano player. He actually was a trumpet player, and he had a muscle issue with the instrument, and he had to stop playing. So he learned playing piano, and he's a great composer. And I actually found a video of me playing with them at Teatro Maya in Cuba. Have you been to Havana? Wait, who has ever been to Havana? Great. So Teatro Maya, it's a huge theater in Vedado, which is pretty central Havana, and they have like a outside place where they host concerts too. It's right next to the theater, and we were playing there. Share screen. I'm so confused. How do I share screen? Basic. Here you go.
super música a base de bacán, piano, con batería, con bajo.
I have a blank on his name, but the guy playing bata right now, he's the one that does the trio show with Chucho. And on drums, his name is Michel Medrano. He was maybe 17 like that. And if you see him today, you would not recognize him. He's probably 3 times as big. And he was already one of my favorite drummers.
Pero bueno, para no dilatar más, vamos a recibir con un fuerte aplauso a Renber, Duarte y Nautilus.
So he actually, the first time he invited me to play, can you hear me? The first time he invited me to play, it was for a TV show. And he was like, can you play with me for that TV show? I was like, okay, yeah. And he's like, learn the music. I'm like, okay, I learned the music. I studied the solo and stuff. And we get to the recording studio, and we waited for like 5 hours and chat and drank some rum and drank some stuff and whatever. And like 5 minutes before going up, I started warming up. And the sax player was like, why are you warming up? It's doblado. How do you say doblado? Doblado is like you play over the music. You like just sing it. And I was like, okay, but it was a trumpet solo, but in a crazy shoot solo. So I tried to learn the trumpet solo in like 5 minutes. I had all that time and nobody told me until I could play back. So yeah, I was 20 years old, living by myself in Cuba, barely speaking Spanish, learning Spanish, living out, play those rhythms, learning how to improvise. This is basically the best proof of how welcoming Cuban culture is. Because I was there, this was maybe 3 months after living in Havana, and I was already playing with those bands. I felt welcome right away. That's me. I'm glad I found that. I had huge dreadlocks. Okay, so that's an idea Yeah, my Cuban experience was great. I played with them, but I also played with almost every band I went to see. I would go to, there's a place, what is it called? ¿Cómo se llama? It's like a huge venue for salsa, right in Havana. I forgot the name. La Tropical. And they had all the salsa band, timba band playing there all the time. And I would go and I would bring my horn. And almost every time, if you bring your instrument, they let you sit in with the band. That's actually how the same Cuban people learn how to play that music, because they all study in classical music. So if they want to actually learn to play salsa and timba, they have to go see the bands and they sit in with the horn section. And if you're good, they keep you for a second tune. And if you're not good enough, well, you get out and learn your stuff and come back next time. And next time they let you sit in again. So I had to do that for the whole year. I played with Poopy. I played with like bunch of amazing bands and I learned so much. I played with Havana de Primera a couple times. Actually, the first time I sat in with Havana de Primera, do you know this band? Alexander Abreu, Havana de Primera. The first time I got to sit in with them, they invited me. It was a friend of a friend, a babalao, like a priest from Santeria that knew him personally, and we were all sitting at the same table. And he was like, "Okay, I got you up." So he brings me to the stage. I bring my trumpet, and I walk to go to the horn section. And Alexander looks at me. He's like, "No, no, no, come up." And he actually wanted me to improvise. In front of the at that time. That was in 2010. Yeah, I think Queso was still in Havana. I'm not sure. Um, my internet connection is unstable. So yeah, that was such a stressful experience because he's one of my favorite trumpet player ever, and that's the first time he actually heard me, and it was soloing with his band. And I started soloing, and if you've seen his show, he doesn't really takes out his trumpet in his live show anymore that much. He mostly sings. So I started improvising, and I was looking at people's face, and suddenly I saw people's face change, and he actually took out his trumpet, and we started trading. And I was like, whoa, that was such a great lesson. Um, yeah, 2010. Um, then I tried to move to New York in 2012. It didn't work out for paper stuff. So I had to move back to Montreal, which was uh, a sad but great thing because I started playing with a band in Montreal called Gypsy Cumbia Orchestra, which is a band from based in Montreal. The two band leaders are Colombian, and they're playing a mix of Serbian music, Balkan music, and Afro-Colombian percussion, mostly from Atlantic, like mapales and stuff. And they offered me to go do a tour in Colombia in 2014. So I went with them for a month, full month tour all over Colombia. We went in small cities like Ipiales, Pasto, Santa Marta, Cartagena, Palenque, Barranquilla. We went all over Colombia, sharing music with people over there. And it didn't, financially, it was not existent. We all did it for love of sharing and stuff. And I asked the band leaders if they accepted if I did my own project within the tour with them. So that's actually when I started studying a little bit more Colombian, Afro-Colombian music and writing the music. I stayed 2 weeks more in Colombia after the tour to actually record an album that was a conversation with Afro-Colombian music. So I recorded it in Colombia. And how that happened is that I already had some tunes in mind for that album. But the first dates we had in Colombia was in Cali at la fiesta la feria de Cali, which is like in New Year's temporada in New Year's time. And they had the second day was El Día de Pacífico, and it was all music from the Pacific coast of Colombia. And actually, most Colombian music that's exported internationally and even inside Colombia is mostly the music from the Atlantic. And the Pacific Coast music isn't that much shared and exported. So I never really heard it before that day, and I was like, okay, I all my first ideas changed. I scrapped all the music that I already had, and I rewrote everything from scratch to do kind of a triangle conversation. I had four musicians from Bogota that were jazz player that didn't really play their traditional music. I had four musicians from the Atlantic coast and four musicians from the Pacific coast, and I created a space and structures on which we could all have a conversation. So I'm gonna make you listen. Just a jam. It's on a mapale, which is a rhythm from the Atlantic coast. Uh, and we were improvising on it. Let me just. Mhm. So it was funny because it was a very, very, very small studio. The horns were behind the board. The tres was sitting on the toilet. The marimba was in the office. The upright bass was in a closet, and all the rest was in the small big room. Percussions and piano and everything. So it was great. And the studio actually bought cameras and screen to be able to do the album live and me giving signs and stuff. So yeah, I had a lot of tunes that were really kind of complicated to play and to build in. So I did some jams like that. I was just saying, okay, let's play a rhythm and improvise free over it and see what's gonna happen. And that's one of them. That was a huge relief because sometimes it was like stressful to have like so many people in a small space, and like a bunch of them didn't know each other either. It was all like our preference and stuff. So that's an album that I'm proud of because it's more conversation. It's a little bit more towards the experiments I want to do because I love to have conversation and to learn about music while doing it, to learn about culture while doing it, which is what I've been doing since I'm a teenager and playing with different people. And I feel for me, the power of improvisation is the ability to be able to have a conversation with people uh, from the complete other side of the planet that you don't necessarily speak the same language, but you can uh, have a conversation through music, and that's the very great power of improvisation. So I have 5 albums now. 4 of them are like more jazz. My first one, I recorded it. I was when I came back from Cuba. I recorded it in 2010, so 10 years ago. I was 22. Um, and those are more like trumpet albums. And this album I did in Colombia, it's more like on the ethnomusicologist side of me, I guess. It's create new conversation with different culture, and that's another side of my dream, is to have like different albums. I'm talking with people in Haiti to do same kind of project I did in Colombia, but in Haiti with Haitian rhythms, with rara stuff and voodoo stuff, and hopefully it works. We'll see. we wanted to plan this for this year and it won't work. So we'll see for next year. But it's not always easy to plan stuff with Haiti if you know a little bit. But I just played at the festival there, and I made some great connections. So hopefully I can go have a conversation with people there. And I did some videos of conversation too. Do you have any question? I feel I'm like speaking too much. No? Great. Okay. I did some videos of conversation too, because I started touring in Europe a little bit more since maybe 4 or 5 years. And in the same concept then that I did the album with Pensamiento. I did a collaboration. I bought a camera. I'm trying to do that same type of conversation, but with just one video. And I went 3 times in Ukraine. Actually, Ukraine is great. I really enjoyed Ukrainian culture. And the first time I went to Ukraine, I went by myself and I brought music. I got to play with local musician there that they learned my music kind of the same day in the show. And the show wasn't a festival. There was like 1,500 people. Most of them were under 35. And they came to see a jazz show, and I felt like a superstar. They were asking like autographs and stuff, and I was like, whoa. I got out of that show and I was like, okay, future of jazz is in Ukraine. So I kept going back to Ukraine, and I met that bandion player, and I wanted to do just an improvisation. He wasn't really, he didn't spoke any English, and I don't speak Ukrainian at all. So I kind of understood that he would play a tune, and I just improvised over it. So I had a conversation with him by this way. I'll show you the video. So this is a traditional Ukrainian piece called limonchiki, which means lemons, but also it comes from the Jewish Ukrainian mafia that they were, limonchiki meant money. I'm not 100% sure the actual story. We actually did it in like 40 minutes because he got there the time that he understood what the concept was and just sat down and we did 2 takes and that was one of them.
Умею подмолачивать, умею шайки крутить, карманы выворачивать. Ой, мальчики, вы мои мальчики, а вы растете не в моем саду. Ой, мальчики, вы мои мальчики, а вы растете у соли на вагончике. На базаре шумы, как слышны разговорчики. Это шоу вчера запели мальчики. Ой, мальчики,
I have a friend in Ukraine, like just playing together for 40 minutes. I know that when I go back, I'm going to call this guy because we had a connection. There's such a great connection that we can create through music, and I love to experiment that. And same for him, like if he ever comes to New York, he has a couch wherever I am. If he comes, he's in my home anytime and So this was completely unplanned. What I want to do with those videos is the more you travel and you meet people, there's moments like that happens naturally that people don't see. It's like behind the scenes kind of moments that I really want to share with people. So I want to do those videos a little bit more. I did one in Tunisia in December, and I haven't finished editing it yet, but it's probably gonna come up soon. And yeah, do you have any questions?
Can I ask you something?
Sorry, go for
Yeah.
it.
Oh, do you want to go
It's
first?
all you.
Sorry?
All you.
Okay. What was the purpose of the lemons next to you on the couch?
That was just it's actually because the piece is called Limonchiki, which means lemons. And the owner that was filmed in the club that his name is Yaroslav Trofimov. He's the owner of a club, small jazz club in Odessa, and he's full of big dreams. And he's the one that have been bringing me to Ukraine 3 years in a row. He organizes different shows in Ukraine to be able to finance his show, the show in his club, because his club is too small, so he could not bring me just to play at his venue. So he kind of became a promoter, and he's kind of crazy guy, and he had that idea like last minute. Hey, take the lemon, put it there. I'm like, okay, great. So that's why.
I was gonna ask, other than Haiti, where else? I mean, do you dream of going and playing with like people, or what is inspiring you, or what have you been listening recently? What have you been listening to recently that's inspiring that you want to play off of, or like new ideas that you have?
Okay, those are like two questions. I guess other countries I would like to have conversations with. I would love to go to different parts of India and kind of do that. That would be totally out of my comfort zone because it's not music I've studied that much. So I would love to go do something in San Andres, which is a small island of Colombia. I went to San Andres maybe 5 years ago, and it's crazy. It's like a complete different culture. They speak kind of an English Creole. They barely speak Spanish. It's part of Colombia, but it's closer to Guatemala, I think. Is it closer to Guatemala? Yeah. It's super far from Colombia. It's just part of Colombia, and they don't really speak Spanish. And they have it's kind of Jamaican style music, but it's very San Andres style of music. It's with the la bocina, the bass with one string and a tube. Yeah, it's closer to like Jamaican or New Orleans old style. It's completely different. I would love to do something over there. Anywhere really. I would love to go in New Zealand and with like the native culture in New Zealand. I would love to do something with the native culture here in Canada, which is very, very strong, which would be probably easier to do, but probably harder for me to assume, I guess. I don't know. Canada history is sometimes frustrating, and it's my history, so sometimes it's harder to face. What was the other question? What am I listening to? so much different stuff. I've started like one album a day 2 weeks ago, which is great, and I go all over the place. I went back to the album of Camarón de la Isla, which is flamenco stuff, amazing. I love to go back to Ali Farcature when I need to
Super
just
chilling.
relax and meditate. um, I listen so much different stuff. I listen a lot of Gnawa stuff, a lot of Sufi music, a lot of Lazaro Ros also. Like when I just want to hear rhythm, I listen to Lazaro Ros, which is he did a lot of compilations of rumba, Cuban, Afro-Cuban batas and rumba stuff,
Cool.
which is great. Yeah, and then trumpet players, and then jazz stuff. And I just listened to Gabriel Chacari. If you don't know this piano player, you should check him out. He just released an album like 2 weeks ago. His album is amazing. Adam O'Farrell is playing on it, like uh, amazing, like always. It's a very, very, very good record. Yeah, I try to listen different stuff all the time. I've if I listen the same style of music every day, I would get bored. And same thing, if I played the same style of music every day, I would get bored. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yay.
So when you were showing us some of the music you've played from Morocco and Cameroon earlier on, you mentioned that a lot of the music is very complex, and you learned it almost entirely by ear. And now you're playing with the Afro Latin Jazz Orchestra every week, and I know that you're getting folders full of charts, of PDFs of charts that you have to learn, and overdub playing with a section. Do you had How do you feel that spending so much time playing complex music that you had to learn by ear has affected the way you learn music that's written? Do you feel it has? Do you feel they have nothing to do with each other, or do you feel that it's a related muscle that you're using differently? Because I personally sometimes struggle to learn extended things by ear.
Right. Well, at first it was an issue because I developed my ear so much, and I didn't develop my reading at all. So at first, when I went to school and when I started playing big band, my reading was so bad that it affected my self confidence a lot because I couldn't read. I had to work my reading a lot. Um, I think I'm so grateful to have started by learning by ear, really, because it still serves so much. Now my reading is good enough, I guess, because I'm working enough in big bands and reading gigs and stuff. So I guess I'm good enough reading. But still, I think I kind of worked on the skills. Like when I see a chart once, when I read a chart once and I've played it once or twice, then I need the paper just to make sure of what the notes are, but I'm not reading anymore. I need to play a piece once or twice to kind of know it by ear. Like if it's easier music, I'm not necessarily reading it. Afro Latin Jazz Orchestra, I have to read it because there's there's some notes and stuff. But still, it's like as soon as you play a piece, I kind of learn it by memory, and the rest is just to make sure I'm not mistaking notes and stuff. And it's great to develop your ear like that because then it's the best way to be able to blend with the section. Because playing at big band, it's so important to blend, and that's a thing I love with Afro Latin Jazz Orchestra, that it's different. There's some pieces that are a little bit more on the Cuban, Afro-Cuban side of things, and if I played it the way I hear it, I would play it differently. But it's really, I love how it's traditional to Afro Latin jazz. It's like there's a lot of like Dizzy Gillespie influence of like the brass playing laid back on a clave that normally brass would play like up front of the time, not laid back of the time. But the sound of aljo is really typical to itself, and it's typical to its lead player, which is Seneca Black. I think if you don't have respect to what you hear, you'll never be the greatest musician that you can be. You have to respect to what you hear, what you hear, and if you're playing fourth trumpet in the trumpet section, you have to follow the lead. I can't be playing on top of the time if Seneca's playing a little bit laid back. I have to follow what he's playing, and that's the truthful of the sound of the arrangement. So yeah, I think, like, I started by year. A lot of musicians start by reading, but nobody can deny the importance of listening. So does it answer? I love it.
I have a question. Like, as I see that you really love to dig to find new musics, and if we imagine that the music is like a tree, what you think that is the, how you say in English, the rama? No, I don't know how you, like, you know,
The branch, the branch.
The branch that is more far for each other, you know, like maybe you can say, okay, this music can have some things in common, for example, flamenco and you know, music from Marruecos. What is the branch that is more far for all the music, in your opinion? I don't know if it's clear, my question is.
Yeah. It's clear. It's funny because right before the we started, I was talking with Zach about Gnawa music, how it sounds like. What's the rhythm you said, Zach?
Festejo.
Like festejo, exactly. And it also sounds like Afro-Cuban stuff sometimes. There's so many stuff linked, and like I feel when you go like West Africa, Spanish, South America, there's so many connections. Like Spain was Andalusia, it was Arab country before it became Spain. There's so many influence in the flamenco music that comes from Arab music, that I don't know, all the mix of music has so many connection. But then if I listen to like Quebec traditional trad music from my country, it sounds like Irish. It's completely different. And I haven't, but at the same time, okay, I'm gonna show you another video. We did a video in Spain that mixed a traditional tune from Quebec with a traditional tune from the north of Spain, from Asturias, which is in the mountains, central north of Spain, which is not like the flamenco influence and stuff, but it's still Spanish influence, and it fits together so great. I'm gonna show you a little bit. Where is it? It's this one. I'm gonna put it a little bit further. So the piece from Asturias is called Charaneru, and the piece from Quebec is called La Zigaison. So it's just played trio, but it does fit together. That's the melody from Charaneru, which is very traditional, like old repertoire from the. that's just an example, but so they both fit together very well. And basically, Quebec traditional music, it's fiddle with spoons, like wooden spoon feet, and claps and singing. Um, I don't know. There's so many connections in a lot of music. I think I've probably intuitively I went to discover styles of music that do have connection within each other. As I said, I would love to go um learn more music in India and stuff, but even then, even there, with all the gypsy stuff comes from India originally. So I feel like there's so many interconnections from like, you can tell story in a book, you can change history by changing one phrase in a history book, but music never lies. You can see that Arab music, that all South American music is influenced by Arab culture. You can hear it. Even if all the books would say the opposite, the music doesn't lie. So I think if I would go back to the school right now, I would love to go back and more ethnomusicology and learn about history through music.
So I have a question. How are you doing?
Hola.
So from what you're saying, what is the best way to learn to introduce yourself? Let's say you're a beginning player, and you will need to have a sequence of events in order to learn all this complexity of the world music. I mean, from integration to to improvisation within arrangements to actually um, orchestra arrangements. What do you think is the best way to do it? I mean, from the beginning to end, from when you're young to when you're older.
Mm. I think the best way to do it is to say yes to everything. And take every opportunities. Like, most of the opportunities I had, I didn't seek for it, I just was open enough to say yes to what came up.
So the option to the opening is to actually say is to welcome everything and then jump into it, right?
Exactly. And just be open and share, and if make sure you're seen on the scenes that you want. Like, a place like New York is a little bit hard to do that, because as I said at the beginning, it's like Montreal was great for that because the scene is so much smaller that it's very easy to jump from a style of music or to the other one. I was in the hip hop music scene, I was in the reggae music scene, I was in the African music scene, and the jazz big band scene. I was in all the scenes at the time, at the same time, which was possible because it's a little bit smaller. New York, you have to find the places where the music that interests you for real, and go show your face, make sure people are there, and like be open to learn, be open to not be okay with the fact that you might not know the music well enough, and take all those experiences to learn about those styles of music. And there's always going to be musician welcoming enough to take you where you are and bring you further.
Hmm. Okay. I mean, I will think that New York will be much more welcoming because it's bigger.
Yeah, welcoming for sure. There's a lot of musicians, very welcoming. It's just like, since I moved to New York maybe 5 years ago, and I miss. I've been playing a lot of jazz, a lot of salsa stuff. I miss playing, like, more the African scene. I miss playing gnawa, but I feel like every scene is a universe of its own in New York City, and it's very hard to like put energy in every scene to be there. It's like I don't put enough time, and just I have some friends that Zach is in that group. They're playing rumba every week, and I don't have the time. I just want to go all the time, and I still haven't found the time because it's every scene demands a lot of your energy to be fully involved in. So it's a little bit more a battle of choose your,
Yeah.
I don't know, choose your Yeah, choose your style, feel a little bit. Maybe one day I'll find a way. Maybe Zach has some better advice because I've been in New York for only 5 years.
Actually, I was actually gonna jump onto what you were saying because I remember a while ago now, several years ago, you and I were hanging out in Montreal, and I went to see. I hopped on the train to catch a gig you were playing in some almost like the suburbs of Montreal. You were playing with an African band, and I was very impressed like that. I knew you as a jazz trumpet player who also happened to have studied in Cuba and is very familiar with Cuban music. But then I saw you playing in this very different context, and you and I got into a whole conversation about how because Montreal is smaller, if someone needs a trumpet player, there's only so many people that they can call, right? In New York, if you have a trad jazz gig, there's 12 trumpet players in New York who just play trad jazz,
Mm-hmm.
and there's 57 trumpet players who just play hard bop, and then there's another 3 dozen trumpet players who only play like free jazz and like free improvisation music. So it's because there's so many people in New York, everyone is able to find their clique and stick with it. And in a smaller city, but that has an equally diverse music scene, just less musicians, I was really struck with how everyone by necessity had to get into other stuff. Everyone had to be willing to play something to learn something that they were less familiar with to begin with, in a way that in New York you don't have to, just because there's so many cats out there.
Yeah, which is probably the reality of most cities outside of New York. But that's my biggest struggle in New York is my musical identity is that versatility. It's I need to be playing all those different style of music, and it's hard to not be put in a box. It's hard to not be put in a niche that you start playing big band and then all the big bands are calling you and suddenly you're only playing big band. Or you start playing salsa and then you're just playing salsa. You play mariachi. Well, I've played mariachi too in New York. I've played a bunch of stuff in New York, but yeah, I think it just takes a little bit more time for people to understand that you're not only the context they've seen you in. I love playing free jazz. I love playing classical music. I love playing all those stuff, and it just takes time for people to understand that you're not in the box, because there's a lot of musicians that just enjoy playing one style, which is also correct, which is also fine. It's just not what I want to do. So with time, it's gonna change. Yay. Do you have any last question?
I have another question.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about Haiti, because I know, as we both spent a lot of time in Cuba, and there's so much deep connection and shared history between the musics of Cuba and Haiti, and I just wanted to ask you about what your experience was delving into the RRA music, and just what you observed, what you noticed, if you felt that having some understanding of Cuban music gave you a foundation to make jumping into that world easier, or whether you got there and it was completely alien territory.
Well, it's funny because I talked about Gnawa, I talked about West African, and I haven't talked about Haiti, but Haiti is my big brother. Like Montreal Haitian community is so huge, and I don't know, the biggest, like the most famous artist that I've played with in all the styles of music are Haitian compa groups. I've played with Skasha, I've played with Tabou Combo. I'm on the last album of Orchestre Septentrional, which is a group that exists since 75 years from Cap Haïtien, which is the north of Haiti, which is the Cap Haïtien. If you
they were here in New York about 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I got to play on their last record that just came out last year. It's like the scene I've been the most lucky in is the Haitian scene. I love compa music. I've listened to that since I started playing trumpet because the Haitian community in Montreal is the biggest um, immigration community, I guess. Yeah, that's how you say it.
One,
I'm sorry for my English.
one good advice is to listen always to compa music because it's always very strong, very strong and very easy to put to dance.
Yes, exactly. The music I prefer the most to dance is compa. I love that music, and a lot of immigration from Haiti to Cuba started years and years and years ago. Um, my boyfriend's from Cuba, and his ancestors are from Haiti. His like three generation back are from Haiti. There's some neighborhoods in Cuba that still speaks Creole, and there's a lot of influence from Afro-Cuban rhythms that comes from Haitian rhythms. I have a friend in um, he's in Colombia right now, but he's from Argentina and he lived 10 years in Cuba. He wrote a book. His name is Rafael Locina. He wrote a book, Los Tambores de Acocan. He actually studied for maybe 4 or 5 years the evolution of Haitian rhythms in Cuba. So I suggest that book. I'll send you the link, Zach, so we can share it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always wanted to play a little bit more rara. And I was just at the festival in January, and you know all the metal trumpet, the rara trumpets. They actually like play. You can have like 10 different trumpets, and they all have only one harmonic, so only one note with the harmonics, and they actually play melodies, knowing where the note is in time in the melody. So they actually do da 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 da. They know every note knows where they have to play, and they're playing like crazy melodies with like 50 of those trumpet. And I got to play with a um James Germain. He's a great Haitian singer, like blues, R&B, Haitian rara singer. And we did a big show. I was guest on this show, and there were 50 of those trumpets. And we ended up the show, the 50 trumpets were pointing at me, and I was responding to them. That was like one of my best experience at for live. That was just in January. Yeah.
What would you recommend to be I mean, we are living in a pandemic crisis, and we're living in a very secluded kind of. What would you recommend the new musicians to look at right now? I mean, in terms of, I mean, because places to play are kind of difficult, uh, access to the world music scene is kind of difficult. But what would you recommend people do?
Um to be honest, to the thing they really love to hear. And do more research on what you really want to hear. I think there's no correct answer. If what you love is Gregorian singing, well, do some research on Gregorian singing. I think it's the most important thing right now is to make ourselves feel better and being honest to the thing you really love, and not to the thing that people tell you to listen, but the thing that you really resonate to.
Thank you.
Me, I have a question. Hi, Rachel. So, maybe you've been asked this a lot, but it makes me really curious. So, how's being like a woman in the musical industry affected you? Like, for example, maybe you've been taken away on a special opportunity because you're a female, or like, just I would like to know that a little bit.
Well, it was actually harder. It was actually harder in Montreal, but I don't know. It's funny because I talked a little bit about how I grew up, and really I feel that where I felt most welcome was in the non-white American community. it's like at first when I started playing, I started playing that African music and Gnawa music. Yes, I loved it and I was curious, but I didn't like wake up when I was 12 starting playing trumpet. Hey, I want to play African music. That's not how it happened. How it happened is that those community were welcoming me more than all the jazz community in Montreal, like all the straight jazz community, the university community, my trumpet teachers. They were all telling me that I should do something else, that I would never do something in music. And still, like 5 years ago, when I ended up moving to New York, I was barely playing in big bands here. And in New York, it's most of my income, which is never something I would have thought of, comes from playing with big bands, which is crazy. Because all the big bands in Montreal are all men. They call some women sometimes the sub, and that's it. So in New York, I felt it less because there's a lot of amazing women. I think like the power of numbers helps. I think the more powerful and great woman playing helps people to change their mind. In Montreal, we're not a lot of women trumpet players or women musician. It's starting to change. Thank you for that, but yeah, it was hard. It was I had to my first album I did it because I wanted to play jazz, and if I didn't do my own project, I would never have played jazz because nobody would call me to play. So I'm glad I did that first album. I sound like a 22-year-old on that record, and it's not the same musician and the same maturity than today, but I'm so grateful that I had the guts to do it and the will. I wanted to play jazz. I wanted to play improvised music, and I did that record. And thanks to that, I still do this today. So it wasn't easy. It's still not 100% easy, but I'm grateful to everybody that decided to have fun playing with me regardless of what I have between my legs, right?
I remember you were telling me, and actually, I think has directly to do with your latest record, Vina, right? Which was you were telling me your goal was to create that. Well, you were telling me that you said something very interesting one time we were playing a session, and you said that you felt like having all women bands or all women big bands or whatever actually wasn't helping the issue that much because it was kind of like self segregation, and that your new goal has been to have bands that are equal parts women and men playing as equals, right? Do you want to speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think like if you I've always like most of my experience in life, I was the only woman in the band. So the amount of time I received a comment like, "Hey, you play great for a woman," right? It's like easy to think that when you see only one woman on stage with a bunch of men that plays great. And then when you see an all-female band, it's like, wow, they sound great, but it's still like you're not hearing men and women on stage playing exactly the same music, exactly the same level, and there's no difference. So the only way to actually change the mentality is to actually see both, to see all genders represented on stage. Because then you close your eyes and you have no way to tell who's a woman and who's a man or who's a he or a it or whatever gender, right? It's all music. And it's all so yeah, it's great. My new album, it's parody. It's 2 women, 2 men. I love it. It's great, and it's also great for touring because like if there's not a lot of budget, we can have 2 rooms, which is good. But outside of that, I didn't choose it like that. I just wanted to play with Mareke, and she was more in Europe, and it ended up like that. And it's actually after like 2-3 shows I realized that it was a huge statement, and especially because it's trumpet and drums, because often like upright bass and piano are softer instruments than trumpet and drums. So to have the 2 women playing drums and trumpet, it is a huge statement because a lot of people never, still today in 2020, a lot of people haven't seen women musician playing jazz. there is a lot of people that haven't seen it still, which is sad because there is since always. But so yeah, I think it's a very, very great statement. And I've all the concert I did with Vena, I've never heard, I never heard you play great for a woman, because now we're two, and everybody sounds the same. Everybody's the same level. Not sounds the same. We all have our unique sound, but we all have the same level of musicianship, and there's no difference. So it's great. Do you have? I have time for one last question because I have a live show at 7 p.m. and I have to prepare for it. If there's
where we can see the live show?
it's on Lattice, Latt. I'll write it in the chat. Lattice Concerts. Yeah. I also do every Sunday at 5 p.m. I do a live show on my YouTube channel and Facebook channel. And I do interviews on Thursday at noon with different people. I'm waiting to see. It might be Linda Briseño with me tomorrow at noon on my Instagram. I'm still waiting for confirmation because with all the, it might not happen. I don't know. With all the protests and stuff, I would totally understand if she can't. So great. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Love.
Thanks to you. It was really inspiring. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing with us. That was incredible.
Yay.
And thank you for joining us, everyone who's here with us. Really appreciate it. If you haven't yet, please just give Afro Latin Jazz Alliance a like and a follow on social media. It helps, and because we're doing master classes like this every Wednesday, and so join us again. I have everyone's email, so Rachel and I will figure out how to get that playlist to you guys, and we can send you guys a playlist of music that she talked about here and stuff that she thinks might be cool. And you should definitely go check out her records because they're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Take care, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.